You'll get there. There with grandkids.
You have to get that back to her.
Yes, sir.
Oh, yes, you're right.
Or is it restaurant tour?
In LA?
No, he's in Indy.
Yeah.
He's gonna be really focused.
He's not calling from the.
Find out what this ticket. I'm sure.
Who do we have down below?
See, it's us.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's probably the owl, right? Kitchen,
This
everything.
man right here.
And, so you guys get Doug's.
So you're gonna be off 15 minutes early.
It looks like he's in a sunny.
He's Doug, it's on the, Doug's on, Doug's by his name.
Okay, all right. Okay, we ready?
Yeah.
Well, it's the witching hour, so we will begin. Welcome to our Capital Improvement Board meeting of June 12th, 2024. We will begin with a call to order, and Mr. Whitlash, will you take attendance, please?
Yes, John Wycart,
Here,
Eric Spoonmore.
Here.
Doug Bruce. Can you hear us, Doug?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Joyce Pauling,
Yes.
Adam Teese, understand he's gonna be a little late. Jim Silverstein,
Here.
and Jay Bear.
Here.
okay, thank you. Mr. Bruce is somewhere in the vicinity of the Speedway of Indianapolis, and he's going to be racing cars later today, so he's joining us from the garage area. Anyway, there he is. There's the Speedway behind him. He looks happier than the rest of us do, and so we will move forward. Let me point out that in our attendance today, we have a number of elected officials, and I always appreciate that. Cheryl Munson with the county council is here. Isabel Piedmont Smith, who's president of the city council, is here. Sydney Zulik is with us on the city council. I see David Henry, who is a candidate for county council, who's with us. And I don't know if I've missed any other elected officials. I see several individuals who are involved with city and county government. Thank you all for being with us as well and for your attention to this today. Let's move to the item number 2, which is approval of consent agenda, which includes the minutes of our May meeting and the minutes of our June 4th special meeting when we interviewed construction manager candidates, as well as claims. So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second? Second, Joyce Foley. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, Mr. Whitlash, if you'll take the roll.
John Wycart,
Yes.
Eric Spoonmore.
Yes.
Doug Bruce.
Yes,
Joyce
Yeah.
Pauling. Joyce Pauling,
Yes.
Jim Silverstein, Jay Bear.
Since I wasn't here for the June 4th meeting, I'll abstain on that.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Item number 3, in the amended agenda, I want to introduce the BEAD Advisory Group that's with us today. You may recall that in January, at our January meeting, I asked Galen Cassidy, who's the owner and general manager of the Uptown Cafe, if he would move forward to help us create an advisory committee from representing the BEAD district, so the Bloomington Entertainment and Arts District. And you may recall the BEAD district was created during the Cruzan administration. It's one of either 12 or 13 cultural districts in the state of Indiana, recognized by the Indiana Arts Commission. And after the pandemic, the promotion of the B district has been somewhat in decline. So I'm eager for us to use the convention center project to resurrect attention, if you will, to the Bloomington Entertainment and Arts District, and to get that district and representatives of it involved with us as we move forward with design of this building. There are many aspects in which we need their assistance. One is in, as I said, both design moving forward, later on in terms of marketing to convention centers about all the wonderful amenities that exist in the cultural district in Bloomington, Indiana. And we will have an opportunity that a certain percentage of our construction budget is set aside for arts. And so we need their advice and their input on all those different items. So short term, I've asked them to be involved working with Schmidt Associates and with JS Held on how we can identify and incorporate the uniqueness of the Bede District in design elements of the building. And then longer term, how we involve them in marketing the convention center to conventions, tying that marketing into this cultural district and what visitors might find when they come to Bloomington, Indiana. So with that, I'm going to ask Galen, and before I do that, let me roughly define the boundaries of the Bede District. So very, very rough geographical designations. To the north, it was north to 9th Street because that included the Bloomington Playwrights Project. To the west, it went approximately over to Rogers and included Wonder Lab and the Bloom Magazine area. To the south, it included the Convention Center and 4th Street, which includes the restaurants on 4th Street. To the east, it included up to the Sample Gates. So within that area, Kirkwood Avenue, the restaurants on 4th Street, the Buskirk Chumley, all the arts galleries on the square. So that has all been part of the Bloomington Entertainment and Arts District. So having given all of us and all of you that background, Galen, I'm going to turn it over to you and ask if you would do an introduction of the members of your committee that you put together.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you, John, CIB. So we did put together an advisory committee now, and I'm excited to announce the following committee members. Holly Warren with the City Arts Department, Economic Development.
Why don't you stand while you're being, and just stay standing, and we'll hold our applause till the end.
Malcolm Abrams with Bloom Magazine, Jennifer Mitsinovich, sorry if I butchered that last name, with Clash Gallery, and Karen Jepson Inez isn't here. She's in Copenhagen right now, with the Wonder Lab. Ajon Rose, Textilier Weavers, Steve Versov, Buskirk Chumley Theater, and Talisha Coppett with Downtown Bloomington.
Okay, thank you very much for your participation. And we look forward to your advice moving forward. So thank you again. Next item, the treasurer's report. So Mr. Spoonmore.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Whitehart. Brief report here for the board. We are on the city council schedule for next week on Wednesday to present the updated budget. And or Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yep, it'll be next Tuesday. To present the amended CIB budget that'll get us through the end of this year. I have sent that information to the council president as well as council office and asked for any questions or feedback on that. Got a couple questions back and have been back in touch with representatives from the city council. So I'll probably also follow up with additional council members to see if they have any questions in advance so that we can make that the smoothest possible process to get the resolution in place that we need in order to go to the Food and Beverage Tax Advisory Commission to get their input. And then assuming all that goes well, we go back to the city council in early August to get the final budget approval. So that's kind of what the calendar and schedule of things look like right now. But very grateful to the city council for being able to include us on their agenda so quickly before they have their summer recess. So thank you, President Piedmont Smith, and we look forward to being there next week on Tuesday. Any questions? This, of course, was the budget that we all voted on last week and the week before.
Yeah.
Losing track of the days.
And let the record reflect Mr. Teese has joined us and is now in attendance at our meeting. Item 5, recommendation for selection of the site for expansion. And Deb, are you handling this item?
Yes,
Okay.
right. So we'll share screen. So today there was a site selection working group meeting working group that has been assigned. And I'm trying to pull this up so everybody can see it. And that included from the CAB, Doug Bruce, John Whitehart, as well as Eric Spoonmar, and then several advisors that are listed here to really work through all of the considerations of the 3 sites going east, going west, and going south. And so with that today, we'll bring a recommendation on behalf of that working group. Obviously, the working group members are either online or in person here, and we'll add comments, I believe, at the end of this presentation. We're gonna restate the project goals. We're gonna invite Schmidt Associates to talk through the site options considered, what they had done previously, and then we'll move directly into the recommendation, the evaluation results. Obviously, there will always continue to be challenges on the project. We want to be very transparent about that. Budget schedule, and then next steps. So as we do this, keep in mind that there's been a lot of due diligence that's happened in the last couple of weeks, particularly in regards to meeting with city planning staff and making sure that we understand what is other due diligence that is needed to get to this recommendation. So with that, I'll invite Sarah Hempstead from Schmidt Associates to talk us through the early work.
Yeah, so let me do some foundational work, back from when the project started, about 6 years ago now, to where we are now. Our project goals fundamentally have remained the same. Number one goal, we need more space in order to do the things that we want to do and make the convention center have more options. So more and better space. As a reminder, that means a big exhibit hall between 20 and 40,000 square feet. That's the biggest piece of that puzzle. 2, inspiring architecture that we want to come and take people's pictures by here in downtown Bloomington. This is important space. 3, that it is a unique space and unique to Bloomington. That's about making it authentic. That's where working with organizations like the Bead Group are going to be really great to make sure that this is an authentic space. 4, we want to enhance our connectivity in all of the ways that means. So connecting physical connectivity to things like the Beeline, but also connecting to the community. Want to be as sustainable, as green as we possibly can be. We want to consider transportation in all the ways that transportation can look on foot, by bike, by car. Want to consider parking and what that means, deliveries and how those work. And all of that safety is our overarching goal to make sure that we are safe and efficient, both things in equal measure. 7, branding and wayfinding. Again, that gets to telling the story of Bloomington, telling the story of this place. We want to be local, and that includes things like unique food offerings. This isn't like any place else, so let's pull in our local talent. We want to be technology rich so that we can continue to move on and do new things as they are required and requested of us by potential clients, and amenities so that it's a vibrant space, and it's a vibrant space every single day, and it's a vibrant space for our guests and for people who live there. Those are our big project goals. So with that in mind, we have narrowed it down to 3 sites that are under consideration: the west, the south, and the east. Just as orientation, we are right here. Let's walk through the sites one by one, and I think we've got them slide by slide. Yep, there we go. So west option. The west option is located immediately west of where we are today. It is immediately on the Beeline, which is lovely, and on 3rd Street. The south option is all the way south of the hotel that we are connected to right now. So on the south side of the existing hotel, and the east option right across College. So with every project and every site, there are pros and cons that go along with each location. I'm not going to read all of this to you as if it is karaoke, but let me hit a few key pros and cons of each site. The South Expansion site, one of the biggest pros of that site is it expands us along the Beeline, which is great because we like that from a community connectivity point. Pretty significant con, however, is there is a pretty significant grade change as we go from this side of the site all the way to the south. So that connectivity, while it looks good, if you look at it on plan in section, does not look nearly as good. It's going to be very difficult to make that work. There's also some upfront and some operating costs in connecting this building all the way to the south side. The east expansion, pros. It has good connection to the community and it has good connection to this building that we're sitting in right now. There's good land availability there and the land is relatively flat and easy to use. Grade change is pretty minimal across that site. Cons, site utility location will be required on that site, and we've got to find a way to get across the street. West expansion, strong connection to the B line again. However, land availability is limited there. And a major con is the Duke power lines. We can relocate a whole lot of utilities and we could even relocate things like Duke power lines. But those Duke power lines would be very, very difficult and expensive. So that becomes prohibitively difficult for this project.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks for giving that update. So the recommendation from the site working group, based on more information that we're going to share in just a couple of minutes, is to expand to the east. So we're going to be telling you what the recommendation is, and then let me walk you through why that is. So we believe that going east will enhance the downtown core. It gives us the strongest connection with downtown, both from the street and pedestrian activation. It infills to reinforce the current zoning, meaning it supports the zoning that is already in place and that what the comp plan shows. So we are doing what we said we wanted to do as a community. It creates that urban edge with comparable heights. It also utilizes the 4th Street garage in the strongest way we get to use that garage than any of the others. It supports the downtown patterns. It creates opportunity for the strong architectural expression along that main thoroughfare. And of course, we have challenges. We'll talk about those too. So I think, again, just to talk about each one very quickly, the east side, which is shown here in the red, is just south, obviously, of the courthouse square. But the key is it's in the downtown core area already from a zoning perspective. And so it is and reaffirmed through our meeting with planning, it is a perfect spot for the convention center and meeting what already was the future and the plan for this site. So enhancing that downtown core. We also know that connection to downtown is critical and it is the closest and brings that strongest connection. I realize that arrow shows right over the garage. We'll have to go around the garage. But we know that infilling to reinforce the current zoning is going to be critical here. And if you have driven by it lately or you look across the street, it is a big open lot right now. And so the ability to infill in that area, create an urban edge, activate the street near the downtown, provide scale that is comparable in the area. So you get that height, that comparability is an important aspect of why we believe going east is the right way. Of course, the east expansion, again, utilizes the 4th Street garage in the strongest way. We think it also minimizes the surface parking because we're able to take advantage of the garage. And when we look at the garage, as well as parking that exists on the west and the south, depending on how the commitments in that current garage are, we think we'd be about 623 spaces. While the UDO really only requires us to have 216, we also know our consultant Converge through Schmidt Associates has recommended 750 is probably an ideal for this size. So we're somewhere in the middle of those two numbers. So we think it's going to give us a good starting point for that parking aspect. And then we really think that this supports the downtown patterns that we already see happening in the 3rd Street corridor, as well as in College. And so when we look at that east location, you can see with the arrows there, we think it really supports that. And again, showing you some photos of things you see and drive by every day, but that 3rd Street arrival that you can see as we fill in that urban edge, going to the South Walnut Street, looking south as well. Again, opportunity to fill in that empty lot and fill it into the downtown core area, as well as really making that connection with transit and the street activation. Last but not least, we think because of its location on 3rd Street, it really does give the strongest opportunity for an architectural expression. It is not hidden by anything. It will be a premier spot and bring more attention to the convention center. Now, challenges, we can't go say all the good stuff if we can't say some of the challenges. And these things we will continue to work on, and every site has its challenges here. There's not one of them that is the perfect site. You heard Sarah talk about the utility relocations. This is not impossible to do, and those things were anticipated in our budgets. They're marked in the yellow there. These are vacated alleys already, but they do have utilities within them that will need relocation. So that's something we're aware of. We'll have to continue to work through how do we make the delivery truck maneuvering as easy as possible for those trucks that are going to be dropping off. We know we have to make space for at least one semi and some other box trucks, but that'll be an important discussion going forward, and more of that will happen through the design process. Of course, as part of our due diligence, we did look at the environmentals. There is a phase 1 environmental that was done. Fortunately, the underground storage tanks that are referenced here as UST and the hydraulic lift and things that were down below have already been removed. And so we're at a level of non-residential, so that we are meeting that requirement. We do expect some soil removal. We don't think it's the whole site, although we are going to recommend testing in the future to make sure that we know what that is, but it could be up to 18 inches. So again, the smaller the area, testing will tell us exactly where. We may be required to do some groundwater monitoring and vapor intrusion mitigation system. All understandable in the Bloomington area, and nothing that is overly surprising here, but it is something that we need to do. And then I've mentioned here in terms of the parking, continuing to talk about is the parking that we believe will be available here of the 623 spaces going to satisfy both the convention and the hotel? And those are conversations that we'll have to continue on to the design process as well. So those are the reasons that we believe going east, and the selection team, on behalf of the selection team, I offer to you, that is the recommendation. Again, citing some of the challenges as well. So with that, we'll open it up with the recommendation to expand to the east.
All right, let's first of all see if there's a motion to accept the recommendation, a motion and a second. And then that will allow us to have discussion and comments on the recommendation. So is there a motion to accept the recommendation to go to the east location?
Move to accept
So moved.
Okay, so Mr. Bruce sounds like he moved it
Second.
and Mr. Spoonmore has seconded it. So we have a motion and a second, and now we can open the floor for discussion on the motion. So members of the CIB, comments?
Well, I like the south side, but I hadn't thought about the hill that is there. But when you think about it, that really is quite a hill. When you stand down low on the bump, so I understand why the east is by part of Central's to begin construction, and since we want to start quickly.
In terms of utilities, is this you said they all have utility
They do.
relocation issues. Is this the least of the three? Or is this somewhere in the middle, or is this? I know that the big Duke lines are probably the biggest
Well, I
problem.
was gonna say west, I think, has
That's
the
the worst,
largest.
right.
I think, and Sarah, I'll ask you to offer insight into this as well, but I think the fact that they're in formerly vacated alleys and that we have to, shift them out of there is probably a piece of that. It's probably where they're located. It's just as much as what they are, but Sarah, any other?
Yeah,
comments?
I would agree. I would say that the east and the south are, the south might be a little bit easier, but the south is not zoned appropriately for what we do either, so that takes up some flexibility there.
And then, if we do go east, how does that impact what's left for hotel development? I mean, do we still have two good lots for them? Because I think the east lot is probably a good lot for hotel also. Do we still have something that's going to be appealing to a hotel?
So that's a great question. And as we get into the hotel RP discussion in a few minutes, we'll lay out a schedule for what that RP process is going to look like. But frankly, our experts have encouraged us to provide the hoteliers with, if we believe there are multiple option sites for the hotel, then those should be laid out. So south, west, I wouldn't rule out the opportunity. Could it go on top? Maybe. I don't know if there's a way to incorporate it onto the east as well. That's been thrown out by several people. And so the recommendation, like I said, the recommendation that we'll have ultimately is throw up all the sites that we believe could be and see what the hoteliers say.
Was any hotel that moves into, say, the west lot, then that's going to wipe out a whole bunch of surface parking.
It is, that's the
That's
downside of
another-
that. So that's a factor. And so parking will have to be considered in that.
Thank
And
you.
the parking numbers that I cited already took out some parking to the south to accommodate a potential hotel, since that's what the R5 was written.
Thank you.
It also would not prevent hotels in an RFP or moving forward to say now, there could be site problems, but they want to say they would do their own underground parking, if necessary, to offset some other loss of parking. So, provides an opportunity for us to put that out to them and, ask them what their thoughts are on.
Is that something we might require of a hotel? I mean, if we're gonna lose a lot of surface parking, would that be part of the RFP?
Yeah, I think, the message to the hoteliers will be, we believe that this is the amount of parking that is necessary, and it'll be a combination of hotel and convention parking. It probably won't be limited unless they build it themselves, then it may be limited.
And subsurface parking is not envisioned as part of our remit on this project.
No.
If we're gonna put the notion a minute ago of putting hotel floors on top of the convention center, where do we cap out from a UDO standpoint?
Well, it would require a variance for height. And so that would have to go through its normal processes through the city. That would be because the hotelier would actually be seeking that. We would not be seeking that as a CIB. Obviously, there'd be coordination, and structure that have to be coordinated with our building versus that. But our intent is to try to, that's why I think it's also important to begin the hotelier RFP process. So the sooner we understand, yeah. So.
Would coordinating with a hotel on top of that, probably to the architect, would that really slow down the process of building this?
So if we're gonna accommodate it in terms of foundation and structure.
Right.
Question I was just getting, the earlier we know that, the easier it makes making good decisions. But we know it can fit, so because we've tested that it would, as Deb said, it would exceed the height requirements currently. You know, that it technically is certain.
It sounds like it probably would slow the process down to me.
Or you would design for it.
Design process.
Or you would design for it ahead of time and have with that decision, right? Having outsized things like your foundation and your structure to allow for it to happen someday, which is inexpensive, but possible.
Any other questions, comments, discussion? Mr. Teese?
Makes a lot of sense. Thanks to everyone who was involved on the committee or the group, the working group. Appreciate that. I did note that city has considered the whole one-way couplet of Walnut and College a lot. That would seem to play a role in the loading world. So whenever that starts to get some legs, probably will want to pay attention to what that will all be about. Makes some sense. Let's keep going.
Mr. Bruce?
John?
Yes,
I have a few points I'd like to make, if you can hear me.
yes.
I think some of these were kind of touched on, but as part of the selection committee, these were certainly some thoughts on my mind about these different sites and why this east site made the most sense. First off, it straddles two of our most visible and I'll say busiest intersections, probably in all of Bloomington, between 3rd and Walnut, and then of course again at 3rd and College. It puts this convention center, and I know the city council would like to see look into transportation options. While some of that is outside of our purview, it certainly puts the convention center closest to our main transportation hub in the bus station terminal. It also, I feel, it really fills in what I'll call is a missing tooth in our downtown, and that is this entire block of surface parking around 3rd and Walnut and College. An infill development there is really appropriate, and it helps fill in the south portion of our downtown. It also builds us closer and allows us to kind of reach towards Indiana University. And, we anticipate that there'll be a lot of users that are coming into town and coming from the west side, not just north and south or the east side. And this is a way to kind of brings what we're doing here closer to the university. I think a couple of the really important features of this site is because it is built across the street from the existing convention center, there's a good chance that it will allow our existing convention center to operate while this is under construction. So, you know, I imagine Talisha would shudder at us having to close everything down at once. I certainly would. And I think that by doing this on this site, and it allows us even to have, when it's all finished, to have two very different groups using our convention center, one with the smaller existing building that we've been using for years, and then one with the newer building with the larger spaces. It also doesn't keep us, when we renovate the existing convention center, and again, we're not sure what the extent of those renovations would be, but a big part of what I'd like to see is somehow how we connect the existing convention center better to the Beeline Trail and make it more accessible for people to come and go on the Beeline. And again, we know we've got grade issues there. And finally, and this was brought up, I think, you know, every one of these sites has some sort of issue or cost. You know, we were looking at utilities on this site, but at least the alleys are already vacated. I just think when we look at the costs and how the convention center will operate and the loss of other parking that we could have, that I feel like this east expansion is the best choice, and it makes the most economical sense for us as a CIB board. So those are my thoughts. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Other comments, discussion? Okay, if not, we have a motion to accept the recommendation to select the east site as the site for the expansion. So, Mr. Whitlash, if you'll take the roll.
John Whitehart,
Yes?
Eric Spoonmore,
Yes.
Doug Bruce,
Yes.
Joyce Poling,
Yes.
Adam Teese,
Yes.
Jim Silverstein,
Yes.
Jay Bear.
Yes.
Okay, so with that, we have a unanimous vote to move forward with the east site as the selected site for the expansion project. So thank you very much. Next item on the agenda, item 6, next steps in the Schmidt design process. So I assume, Sarah, will you be handling that, or is Deb handling that, or who's handling that?
Okay, next step. So within the next 30 days, we've got important things to do. Finalize our CMC selection and get that contract going. Finalize the AE contract with all of our subs. That lets a lot of other important things happen. Make sure that we have the site fully surveyed all the way to every edge. Make sure we have our geotech ordered, get the hotel RFP in process, as it does make a difference where they're gonna go. That's okay, I just didn't memorize it. Update the schedule, including starting to meet with some of our stakeholder user groups to make sure that they're involved in the process, including bi-weekly coordination meetings with your team. Make sure that we're moving forward and really begin schematic design. And so schematic design, or SD, so we're really starting to lay out floor plans to program the space down to every detail, to work on our existing building documentation so that we understand exactly what's here. And so we can preserve as much of it as possible so that we can put our money in the new facility and preserve the asset that you have here. And then go for 2024 funding approvals. Beyond that, we're going to complete our site survey and geotech. We're going to do an updated budget. We're going to start meeting with all the utilities to figure out what that relocation looks like and how to make it work. Meet with additional key users and continuing to develop that schematic design. Questions about any of that?
Questions from board members? Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
All right, so next steps in Schmidt design, Mr. Whitlash, you have a recommendation for how we move forward with this?
I think we move forward and approve that timeline, and also approve the finalizing the contract with Schmidt, and so that we can get started on the site survey and geotechnical work and that type of thing as quickly as possible. I'd ask that plan be approved moving forward. allowing, me to work with those, John or others, to get that Deb, to get that contract in order with the architects and anyone else that we need to get that in order with. And, bring it back to this group no later than the July 10th meeting, but if we feel it will be advantageous to bring it earlier, we may call a special meeting for the sole purpose of getting that contract prepared. Could be a short meeting, but we really feel it's important to get that moving and rolling as quickly as possible.
With that as a lengthy recommendation,
I'm gonna take a stab.
So let me just
okay.
synthesize that a little bit. Recommendation is move forward with, entering into contracts with Schmidt and, getting that Schmidt's program started as quickly as possible.
So I'll move, that the capital improvement board, ask Mr. Whitlatch and Ms. Coons to work with Schmidt to negotiate, the contracts on, the next steps as described by, Mr. Whitlatch's recommendation.
I would second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Spoonmore and a second by Joyce Pauling. Any discussion of the motion or comments? We've seen none. Mr. Whitlatch, if you'd take the roll.
John Wyckoff,
Yes?
Eric Spoonmore.
Yes.
Doug Bruce,
Yes.
Joyce Poling,
Yes.
Adam Tees,
Yes.
Jim Silverstein.
Yes.
Jay Bear.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Do we need I'm sorry to interrupt, do we need another, vote on the timeline? That we wanna,
I don't think so.
okay.
I think included in your motion was that if we,
By
it'll,
July
it'll come,
10th,
it'll
yeah.
come back by the July meeting. If there's need to bring it back sooner, we'll have
Yeah.
a special meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, item 7, recommendation for selection of a construction manager. And, I will turn this back over, Deb, to you, I guess.
Thank you. So, we last, reviewed the, 3 construction management teams on, June the 4th through interviews. That was a public process, so many in the room either saw it online or were here. Thank you to those who, were here and participated. Jay, I know Rome was more important.
Not more important.
Just as
profitable.
important. And possible, yeah, possible. But we barreled on, and we appreciate everybody. So the scores for the CIB were Doug Bruce, Chip Silverstein, Adam Tees, Joyce Poling, John Weichart, and Eric Spoonmore. With those 3, then the recommendation, is going to Weddle Brothers. That was based on the 5 criteria that was noted at the interviews of approach, team and staffing, local experience, large project experience, XP participation. Of course, that was noted previously in their RFP responses. And not only does Weddle Brothers give the best value, they got the highest qualitative score. They also have the lowest price, which gives you the best value. So that is the recommendation based on the scoring.
Well, I'll move that, we accept the recommendation of Weddle Brothers as construction manager at risk.
I would second.
So a motion by Mr. Spoonmore, second by Joyce Pauling. So the floor is open for discussion or comment. Mr. Spoonmore.
Yeah, I would just, I'm certainly gonna vote in favor of this, but I do wanna, also, note that these were 3 extraordinarily, professional, competent, worthy, firms that, we were very fortunate to have submit, their interest in this project. And so I learned a lot in those interviews. And I just appreciate the time that everybody, put into that and the very professional presentations that were delivered to the Capital Improvement Board. And looking forward, to hopefully, if this passes, working with Weddle Brothers going forward.
And I would certainly second, not that that was a motion, but I would second your comments. So any other comments, questions on the motion? Seeing none, Mr. Whitlash, if you'll take the roll.
John Whitehart,
Yes?
Eric Spoonmore.
Yes.
Doug Bruce,
Yes.
Joyce Poling,
Yes,
Adam Tees,
Yes.
Jim Silverstein,
Yes.
Jay Bear.
Because international travel took me away from these meetings, I'll abstain on this vote, but certainly have no objection.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Congratulations to Weddle Brothers, and thank all of you for participating in the process. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is next steps in the hotel RFP process. Deb?
So now that we have a site selected, we anticipated with the positive vote that it would be time to issue the request for proposal. So we would like your approval to begin working on that RFP, knowing that it will take us a couple weeks to get that finalized and ready to issue. We have reviewed the request for information responses, and we have an expert on our team named Adam Gelter, who you haven't seen yet, but I'm sure through the hotel process, you will come to see him and meet him. But he validated that all the responses are in fact valid, and that all should be invited to submit on the RFP. So that is good news. And it's great to have that many responses. So with that, we would propose an RFP issuance schedule release on June the 28th. We are going to ask of the six for them to, by the 10th, tell us if you plan to submit. You don't have to tell us what you're submitting yet, but tell us if you plan to submit so that we know when it gets to the August date, a month later, that we will in fact have proposals at that time. So then we'll ask them to submit on August the 9th. We will ask John to, help us appoint who are the appropriate people to be part of that review, whether that's from the CAB and others. There'll be an evaluation period. We'll come back to you, ideally at a special meeting, although I think we got to work on the date a little bit here, that we would ask you to approve the short list as your normal practice and procedure has been. We'll do interviews as well as a targeted selection date on September 11th.
And so just to repeat what you said, there were 6 respondents, and
Yes.
you're recommending that all 6 be invited
Yeah.
to submit proposals. Mr. Tees?
Will we have a chance to see what the RFP is before it goes out? Because I'm not entirely clear what we're offering, like what we, the CIB, are offering or not offering. It's unique.
Yes, and we have a couple weeks to do that, so
Okay.
we have the opportunity to do that.
Mr. President, participating in the initial RFI is not a precondition for responding to the RFP, is it?
I don't think so. I think those are the ones that we will definitely.
Yeah, they raised their hand.
Continue. They raised their hand early, so we'll continue, but I do not believe that it would preclude. Jim could tell us otherwise, but I don't think it precludes anyone from jumping in the game and submitting.
It's conceivable that somebody wanted more information before they even raise their hand. That may not be the case, but I don't think we should rule that out,
So there could be a 7th.
or 25th, or who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the process moving forward, and to Mr. Teese's question, I would anticipate would be very much like the process we've been using all along, which is we may identify a group to do some pre-screening, we bring that back, we look at it, we invite respondents for interviews, the board as a whole is involved in those interviews in a public meeting. So we would use the same process we've been using throughout. Now, do we need a motion, Mr. Whitlash, to approve this or this
I don't
process?
think it hurts to have a motion to
Okay.
approve this.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve this process moving forward?
so moved.
Second. And second by Mr. Silverstein. Any more discussion or comments? Seeing none, would you take the roll?
John Whitehart,
Yes?
Eric Spoonmore.
Yes.
Doug Bruce,
Yes.
Joyce Poling,
Yes,
Adam Tees,
Yes.
Jim Silverstein,
Yes.
Jay Bear.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda is old business. Does anyone have any old business to resurrect and bring back before the board?
I just have a comment, and I'm not sure exactly how to put it, but at the last, when we were doing the assignments on selection, it was a new process for me. And I'd opened lots of bids. This was like nothing I'd ever done. So I felt if I didn't understand, that the public who was watching our meetings really don't understand. And had it not been for Adam calming me down and telling me what was going on, I don't know what would have happened. I would have been disrupted. So I felt the same with Weddle Brothers' presentation when they mentioned the law, the labor law. And I felt again that the public needed to know what law to which they were referring and how it impacts what we're doing. So I just would like for the public's sake and often my sake, that we have a little more clarification when we're doing presentations.
We would, I note your concern. I will point out that before we had our interviews, we had a meeting that the public could have attended where that whole rating and ranking and scoreboarding process were explained. And I'm confident we'll do that again, moving forward with the hotel process, but by all means, we want to make sure certainly that all the members of the Capital Improvement Board understand, what we're doing and why we're doing it. And
I think the
and
why
part of
is
that-
very important.
Part of that is also educating the public as well.
Correct.
So your point is well made. Any other old business?
I have old business with a new bit of frosting. Website is now officially done. It's up to date as of moments ago. All the materials that we talked about today will be on the website tomorrow. But big breaking news, we all have email addresses now. So your eric.spoonmore, your adam.keys@monroecib.com and all forwards to the email address you gave me. They all work. You might want to send yourself an email to your monroecib.com address just to make sure it arrives, but it should. So now we're professional as such.
And I was going to make a comment under comments from board members, thanking you for all
Yeah,
this
it's
effort.
good.
And it's the website. If you have not seen the website, it's an excellent website. So by all means, those of you in attendance, if you have not visited the CIB website, please do so. It's terrific, and we thank Mr. Bear for his efforts.
No worries.
New business. Items under new business. Comments from board members. I would like to make a comment. I first of all want to acknowledge the receipt of the recent letter from the Bloomington City Council regarding their list of recommendations for our consideration as we move forward in the design process. And I want to thank the council for its input. And further comment that we look forward to input from the other elected stakeholders and the public as the design goes forward. So thank you. Any other comments from board members?
Yeah, I'll take you up on that.
Mr. Spoonmore.
Just another quick update. We will be constructing the 2025 CIB budget. I'll be working with Mr. Whitehart, Mr. Underwood, and any others who are interested to bring that to the city council next month. So that they can get that, or to the CIB next month. I'm sorry, city council will be on recess. We'll take that for them later during the budget process. So we'll be formulating that, and we'll have a budget to present for 2025 next month or next meeting.
Okay, any other comments from board members? Comments from the public? Anyone from the public have a comment? All right, seeing none, yes, I'm sorry,
County surveyor.
county surveyor, yes, please.
Yes, just
All right.
there we go. No worries. I just wanted to thank the site selection team on their work. I also wanted to just thank the CIB board for choosing the site that was recommended. The impetus of my comment is I really thought the south option wasn't a great choice because of some of the viable businesses there, and I'm just really happy that we chose one that wasn't the southern option. So I just really appreciate that and wanted to thank everyone involved.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from the public? All right, seeing none, our next board meeting is July 10th, 2024 at 3 PM here at the Convention Center. And with that, we are adjourned.